This is the Local School Governance Series developed by the Avondale Business School on behalf of Adventist Schools Australia for Seventh-day Adventist schools who are part of the ASA network. This program is presented by Warrick, the current head of Avondale Business School, and in this particular presentation we'll be looking specifically at the chair of the Local School Advisory Council and what it takes to particularly being effective in that role. Adventist Schools Australia has commissioned a series of governance resources to assist local schools in fulfilling their governance responsibilities. This particular program explores the role of the Local School Advisory Council Chair and how to be effective in that role. It considers the criteria, qualities, terms of appointment and effective meeting procedures. So let's begin by providing a roadmap of where we are going. But first, please note that we'll be using the term chair to refer to the chairperson, chairman or chairwoman throughout this presentation. In this program, we're going to be looking at, firstly, the criteria for appointment and then the desirable qualities and characteristics for the ideal chair. We will then move briefly to look at the appointment process and the tenure of the chair. We will next spend some time reviewing the role and duties, and then we will delve into tips for managing meetings effectively. Finally, we'll suggest some next steps for you to consider. Before we launch into this, however, let's spend a few moments as a group thinking about the role of the chair. Take the time to share what the best performance by a chair in a meeting is that you've seen. Think about and share what things made this so impressive. And with that experience in mind, what are the attributes that you as a group agree as being fitting for a good meeting chair? So pause this presentation for 6 or 7 minutes, or longer if you like, and chat about this. And then when you finish your discussion, simply restart this presentation to continue. To provide some context, let's look at why a chair is even necessary for a meeting. Every meeting needs to have a chair whose basic role is to preside at the local school advisory council meetings and to work collaboratively with the principal, who is the secretary of the meeting, to provide the best opportunity for God's will to prevail at the meetings and to ensure that the meetings are conducted in an orderly and efficient manner. Just imagine how out of control and ineffective meetings would be without someone to oversee them. Also note how important the relationship between the chair and the principal is. It's very critical that this relationship is consciously nurtured and actively developed. For the chair to be really effective, they need to understand the purpose of the Local School Advisory Council, so as to ensure that the time is spent focusing on what is important rather than taking detours into irrelevant areas. In the first program of this governance series, we looked in detail at the Local School Advisory Council, and in the second we explored what makes effective meetings. So to give us a solid foundation for that of the chair, we're going to review briefly the role of the Local School Advisory Council. Most importantly, the Local School Advisory Council is an advisory body to the principal. It is the principal who has responsibility for the day-to-day management of the school. Also note that the Local School Advisory Council is obligated to the entire conference schools company and not just an individual school. And then the conference schools company delegates particular responsibilities to the Local School Advisory Council and operational management to the principal. The principal and the Local School Advisory Council then collaborate in order to effectively meet their respective delegations. As noted on the previous slide, the Local School Advisory Council is required to be faithful to the various policies and procedures of the conference schools company. And the delegations that may be established on behalf of the conference schools company could possibly include approving submissions to the conference schools company, and examples of that would be budgets, strategic plans, financial reports, etc. Might also include overseeing the compliance regime of the school and participating in the Quality Adventist Schools Framework school improvement process. It is very important also for the local school advisory council to regularly undertake reflection and review of the mission of their SDA school and its quality and effectiveness. And this can best be achieved largely through participation in the Quality Adventist Schools framework. Having reviewed the role of the local school advisory council, we now have a context for the chair and what they might be dealing with. We will now review the criteria for the local school advisory council chair and the desirable qualities and characteristics that can make them effective. There are a number of essential criteria for an effective local school advisory council chair. First and foremost, the chair needs to be a person who walks closely with God and then displays the qualities of a servant leader. In addition to this criteria and the essential criteria for being a local school advisory council member, the chair must also agree to being willing to participate in training events and gatherings for local school advisory council chairs as organised by the Conference Schools Company. They also agree to committing to the building of a good relationship with and take pastoral responsibility for the school principal. At this point in our presentation, it might be helpful to discuss as a group what that pastoral responsibility might actually look like. Take some time to share your ideas as to what providing pastoral responsibility for the principal might involve. What activities, what meetings, what commitments might be utilised. And then if you haven't already, perhaps now might be the time to then find out from your principal what they think it involves and what they would appreciate. Every principal is different, so you need to tailor your ideas for your particular principal. So take 6 or 7 minutes, and again longer if you like, to discuss this. Pause the program now and then simply restart it when you're ready to continue. While few people would have all of the following qualities and characteristics in the list that follows, this has been adapted from Horsley's meetings. It does, however, typify what an ideal chair would possess. Firstly, they would have leadership in a positive way. That is, it would be constructive and collaborative. Secondly, they would have a flair for appreciating peculiar requirements of particular circumstances and occasions. That means not being dogmatic, but rather being able to adapt to the time and occasion. Dignity and integrity are key roles. It really goes without saying, but we've stated it anyway. Talent for presiding gracefully is really critical, or rising above the rough and ready and instead setting an example for the conduct in the meeting. Impartiality is important regardless of personal or sentimental circumstances, and it's very critical to remain impartial and free from conflicts of interest. Also, they're required an ability to gain cooperation. That is, the effective chair unifies people towards achieving common goals. Tact, diplomacy and patience are essential traits for any chair. The chair also needs to be able to stay the course and stand firm on matters of importance. Hence, they need to be firm and have courage to take distasteful action when necessary. They also need a presence of mind and some common sense, or keeping grounded amidst the confusion. They should also have an instructive use of correct grammar, but without being pedantic about it, because it's important to be able to articulate the actions and decisions of the local school advisory council, in particular as they interact with other entities like the Conference Schools Company. There needs to be confidence. Other local school advisory council members will look to the chair for their confidence and assurance. And then finally, they need to have a knack in arousing participation, that is, in stimulating group discussion. The effective chair will ensure that all local school advisory council members are involved and engaged and participating. Having looked at some criteria, qualities and characteristics of the ideal and most effective chair, we'll now review the appointment and tenure of the chair. Very simply, the appointment process is the same as for the local school advisory council member, which involves being appointed by the Conference Schools Company Board of Directors, who receive advice from the Conference Director of Education based on consultation and recommendations from the principal. And as for the local school advisory council member, the usual tenure is for a term of 3 to 4 years, which can be extended to a second term and under special circumstances can go to a third term, but that requires consultation with and approval from the conference schools company. The success of a meeting often depends on the ability of the chair to ensure the members are informed, engaged and committed. We will look now at some general and then more specific roles and duties required of the effective local school advisory council chair. This is a comment from a judge way back in 1894 regarding the role of the chair. It is the duty of the chairman and his function to preserve order and to take care that the proceedings are conducted in a proper manner and that the sense of the meeting is properly ascertained with regard to any question which is properly before the meeting. So irrespective of the type of meeting, the chair has a duty to preserve order, ensure the meeting is conducted in a proper manner, and that decisions are made appropriately. So from a more recent court case in 1962, there are some more important points regarding the role and duties of the chair. These include noting that the authority to preside over a meeting does not give dictatorial power. It merely makes the chairman first among equals and imposes on him certain duties, including taking the chair and carrying on the meetings so that the business of the body in question before the meeting is disposed of as the meeting desires, and also preserving order of the meeting. So noting from this, the chair does not have absolute power. And secondly, the role of chair does bring certain duties. These include leading the meeting, ensuring proper decision making per the will of the members, and ensuring that there is order to the meetings. So having now just reviewed the general duties of any chair, we'll turn our attention more specifically to the role and duties associated with the chair of the local school advisory council of an SDA school. First and most importantly is to work collaboratively with the school principal regarding the local school advisory council meetings. We will delve into this in a bit more detail shortly. It also includes any delegations from the conference school's company board of directors. And an example of this might include engaging with the Director of Education in the senior leader appraisal process. It also ensures that the local school advisory council members are informed, engaged and committed to their roles. And then in consultation with the principal and the conference director of education, it involves determining the times and dates for meetings throughout the year, remembering that there needs to be a minimum of 6 per year and not forgetting to advise all the local school advisory council members of those dates and times. And then in consultation with the principal, there's the establishment of subcommittees and working parties of the local school advisory council, subject to complying with membership requirements. This role also includes the right to attend any subcommittee or working party, usually in a non-voting capacity. However, the chair is not obliged to attend, but they do have the right to if they wish. Importantly, it also includes approving and signing the local school advisory council minutes. And finally, but certainly not least of all, the chair is responsible for handling any real or perceived conflicts of interest of local school advisory council members, and where appropriate should seek the advice of the conference director of education. Now that we have a context for the chair and an idea of their role and duties, we'll look specifically at managing meetings. As we've discovered, a key role of the chair is to preside over meetings and ensure there is good order and good decision-making processes. So now we will look at managing meetings, the actual nuts and bolts of them. Effective meetings don't just happen, they come about through careful preparation. This preparation is based on having a positive working relationship with the principal, who is also the secretary of the meeting. Through this relationship, the agenda material should be agreed to and prepared so that it can be sent to the local school advisory council members in advance of the meeting. In preparing the agenda, the chair and principal also need to ensure that they both understand very clearly what the issues may be and what the preferred direction to take on them might be. It's at this point that some robust discussion may need to take place between the principal and the chair. If the chair and principal fail to come to some sort of agreement, it may be appropriate to consult with the conference director of education. Either way, both the chair and the principal should clearly understand each other's views on issues before the meeting. It's also important to ensure that there is an agreed finishing time for the meeting in order that the meeting stays focused. And then in the lead up to the meeting, make time to pray about the issues, the members and the school, and if possible, set aside some time with the principal and pray together. As silly as it sounds, it is important to start the meeting properly, which then sets the tone for the rest of the meeting. Start the meeting on time. Don't punish the people who've made the effort to be there. Get the meeting going on time every time, and you'll soon find that everyone learns to arrive on time. The chair sets the tone and the example in this respect. The social elements of meetings are important as they build a sense of team and togetherness. However, once the meeting begins, it's important to stay focused on the issues at hand. The chair needs to direct members' attention to the agenda and begin the meeting. And at the commencement of any local school advisory council meeting, the first order of business should be a period of time acknowledging the headship of God over the school and praying for wisdom and guidance throughout the meeting. At this point, let's spend a few moments working out how we would like our meetings to run. Take some time and share together what your meetings might look like if there was no one leading them. And then assuming you, like pretty much everyone else, envisaged a meeting in total disarray, think about what rules you would put in place to try and have some form of order. For example, how is it decided and by who as to who gets to talk? Is it the loudest person, or a show of hands, or what method? So pause this presentation for however long you need, possibly 6 to 7 minutes, and then have a group discussion and then simply restart it to continue. Having gotten the meeting underway, the chair now needs to ensure that it progresses effectively. One issue that we need to mention is the involvement of the chair in discussions. Typically, the chair tries to maintain a sense of neutrality or impartiality as much as possible and simply coordinates the discussion. However, where the chair has a particularly strong or passionate view on an issue, it's usually best to ask another member to act as chair for that discussion item, thus enabling the chair to fully participate in that particular discussion. And very importantly, the chair should strive to keep the discussion focused on the issue at hand. Allowing detours and diversions not only prolongs the meeting, but diminishes the quality of decision making for the current issue. It may be appropriate to park these other issues and come back to them at a later time. A skill of an effective chair is to get all members participating in discussion. This may require the chair actively inviting by name some members who have not yet contributed to the discussion. Some members seem to need a personal invitation to become involved. And equally important, the chair may also need to rein in members who dominate discussion and have a disproportionate amount to say, which may be intimidating some members or disengaging others. This is where the qualities of tact and diplomacy are very important. Many decisions need to be made at local school advisory council meetings, and the chair is responsible for enabling this process. Recall that where possible, consensus is the goal, being a collegial approach. However, on occasion a formal vote may be required, in which case there are a few things to remember. The chair has only one vote, like everyone else, and does not have a casting vote. Any invitees in the meeting do not have a vote, and a member must be present to vote. There are no proxy votes. A simple majority, which is 50% or more of eligible members in attendance, carries the vote. And if an issue is particularly contentious and voting is too close for a workable resolution, then often the best course of action is to consult with the conference director of education, noting that the status quo remains while this occurs. It's important to also know how to close a meeting so that it does not drag on past a reasonable time. The chair should be cognizant of the time and ensure the meeting concludes at the agreed time. Where it is important that it continues, however, the chair needs to get a consensus of the members to extend the finishing time. Once discussions are concluded and the agenda items are addressed, a quick reminder of actions decided and the persons responsible to follow up should be noted. It's also important to make sure that everyone leaves having been reminded of the date, time and venue for the next meeting. It is also best practice to spend a few moments at the end of the meeting reviewing how the meeting went. Do the members feel the issues received appropriate attention? Are they happy with the decision-making process? Was the information received adequately before the meeting, etc.? Just a quick review enables members to have some feedback and to make sure the meetings are even more effective. So having journeyed through the experience of the effective local school advisory council chair, there are a few things for you to consider next. There are a number of things that you should confirm. Firstly, what is the term of appointment for the chair? 3 years, 4 years, and when does it end? Also, scheduling regular meeting times between the chair and the principal. When will these be? How long will they last? Also, what pastoral support will the chair provide for the principal? What kind of support does the principal want? And to ensure that the appropriate meeting arrangements are in order, including when the agenda is sent out, the frequency of meetings, the length of meetings, the meeting dates and times, and the venue for the meetings. That brings us nearly to the end of this presentation on the effective local school advisory council chair. Let's just spend a few moments looking back on what we've covered. In this presentation, we worked out why a chair is actually necessary for a meeting. We also recapped the role of the local school advisory council so we could better understand the context for the chair. We explored the criteria, qualities and characteristics of the ideal chair, and we reviewed the appointment process and tenure. We also considered the role and duties of the chair both generally and specifically for the local school advisory council of SDA schools. We then went through how to effectively manage the actual meeting process, including preparing for the meeting, starting the meeting discussions, making decisions, and then closing the meeting. And finally, we looked at some suggested next steps to ensure the local school advisory council chair has the best chances of being effective. Before we conclude this presentation, there are a range of resources available to local schools and their advisory council members in relation to good governance, advisory councils, and chairing meetings. Here are a range of resources that you might find useful, including a number of free resources, and also including resources from Adventist Schools Australia and the Avondale Business School. Thank you for participating. We hope you found it useful. We'd very much appreciate if you would complete a very brief anonymous survey that will help us to continue to improve the resources we offer you. Simply go to the survey via the link shown on this slide. And if you have any further questions or comments, please do not hesitate to contact either ASA or Avondale Business School via the contact details listed here. And best wishes for your school.